Hello and welcome to Sensei Podcast. This is Manos Brilakis discussing with leaders in the field of CTO and complex PCI. Sensei means teacher or master in Japanese. The goal of the Sensei Podcast is to help you learn and improve in CTO and complex PCI so that you can become the best that you can be and offer your patients the best possible results. Hello everyone and welcome to Sensei Podcast. This is the inaugural podcast and it is my great privilege to welcome Dr. Masahisa Yamane, one of the world leaders in CTO PCI, who is actually truly a sensei. And since he's actually from Japan, and that's where the term sensei is coming from, maybe we can kick it off by asking him what is actually a sensei, and then we'll move on.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you, Manos, and such a kind invitation. And I don't know whether I'm called a sensei or not. Still, that I'm not so much confidence in my area. But sensei, in the general term, meaning the teacher in English. But of course, if you depend on the what school you are, high school, probably sensei means a teacher. But in a university setting, probably sensei means a professor, or the associate professor included. But sometimes the sensei expands reason for a little bit more broader sense, both in good and bad. Good sense is sensei, even the politicians sometimes call the sensei because he is kind of the representative of the people over there. But sometimes that the sensei means some kind of the more cheap words for just praising ordinary people with a little bit scornful meaning as well. So teacher implies a broad meaning, but usually if you call the sensei, either your profession will be literally teacher or the doctor or some kind of the former politician or the mayor included, those kind of things.
Perfect. Well, I mean, the setting of CTO, obviously, in my mind at least, sensei means that the true master of the art who actually teaching other people how to do this. And actually, this is the whole point of, or a big point of this webinar, which is our podcast, which is how to learn how to do this. And,
sure.
You've done teaching of CTO PCI, complex PCI around the world many times. But just curious, how did this all start? What made you go into this area? Did you know when you trained? And I think you trained in Boston, actually, if I remember correctly.
Right. Probably when I started learning the PCI, in those days, back to more than 35 years. So that was the days of balloon angioplasty alone. So probably the environment is quite different. And after that, I flew back to Japan with a promise with my parents because that was a pre-specified promise back to Japan. So the practice-wise in Japan, actually the patients' volume were not so enormous compared with those of the U.S. So actually per institution volume is not so great, even today as well. So, in other words, institutions are thinned out throughout the country. So we have a relatively time and relatively think about the CTO as well. And without any help of the stent or other measures, a group of the physicians in Japan dare to open up the CTO in those days without any stent. So probably that's what we started with the CTO. And earlier phase, I was also interested in those kind of a CTO, and I introduced to the Dr. Kato, and that's the beginning of the how I started to learn to CTO PCI.
So you had a little more time, but also, clearly that's not enough because many people have time, but not everyone learns how to do these procedures.
Right.
So was Dr. Kato one of the main people that help you? Who are the people who actually help you, develop your skills and become such a expert in this area of CTO?
Again, that is a very long story, but make a long story short, when I was in Boston, my kind of a mentor for the regular diagnostic cath as well as a basis of the PCI is Dr. Schubergs. He is still in the New England Deaconess. Right now it's merged with the Beth Israel. So still he is very active, and the way he teaches us is very much unique. unique in terms of the not so many orders, but he showed us how to do that and how to approach. And in those days, we have to go to the hospital the next day for pulling out the sheath, because the sheath remains overnight is some kind of the golden rule, just in case of the emergency.
Sure.
So when I went to the weekend to the hospital, and I passed by near the cath lab, and somebody is using the Vanguard machine, that is a viewer of the film. In those days, we developed the film
Sure.
to see the angiogram. And what I found was Dr. Schubert is going over the every films over the week. But in those days, the diagnostic doing the more than 50 diagnostics on the week and something, so it's huge volume of the cases. But still, he is just going over the cases after cases, and then that he reviewed all of the cases, and the next week, and then we have repeat those kind of the process. So during that training, I think that maybe some repetition of the learning is very much important. That's how I started with the cases. For the example, the CTO case, I go over the film at least 5 or 6 times before the procedure, because if you have some kind of a rush, mindset is a little bit different by day, right?
Absolutely.
So if you have the more relaxed situation, you have pop up one of the strategies in the same diagnostic film, but in the next day, probably you may have a different idea. So after 5 or 6 times, I build up the strategy and disassemble, and build up the strategy and disassemble, and finally I can solidify some priority of my strategy alone. So I'm basically the very much lazy person alone. So probably when we have some meeting with the other colleague doctors, as well as some audience, probably that motivate us to push us to a little bit more challenging cases as well.
Actually, I love it because, I mean, the reality is, you're right. You cannot do a CTO or complex PCI in a rush, right? Because you don't have enough,
right?
The focus, and then things are more likely to go wrong or complications to happen.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, we live in a fast-paced society and rhythm, and sometimes this luxury of time and going them over in detail is overlooked, especially from the younger generation.
Mm-hmm.
So it's fascinating to see that actually you still, spend the time for every case to go over it in detail and review the case and make the plan, and you break the plan several times before you actually come to the final one.
Right.
And are many people doing that, you think? I mean, I know in Japan people are very patient and methodical, or is this a characteristic of everyone, or specific people who actually take this to the next level?
I think that different people has a different strategy, I guess. So even the learning, or that the just going over the case just before or after the procedure, it's quite different. I mean, not only the Japanese, but the person-to-person variations throughout the world. And before developing of the hybrid approach, as well as drug-eluting stents, we were a kind of a very special small group of Japanese physicians. But when some stent appears on the market, there is some potential for the benefit for keep opening of the CTO. And then 2004, the drug-eluting stent comes up. So then we realized that we may beat the surgeon one day, because most of the Japanese, if the conditions are being equal, they prefer to go to the non-surgical treatment, because partially it's a culture, or partially from the religious belief. But those kind of things propel us. And then at the time that the Dr. Cattle and their group developed the retrograde approach, which seems to be very much crazy, and still the famous doctor in the U.S. criticized Dr. Cattle, such a crazy idea. That is 2002. But yesterday's crazy idea becomes a standard today. So that is a very good example. And I'm fortunate to adopt those retrograde in the same time. So that's why I'm a little bit more earlier start to learn those kind of complex PCI as well. So that's, I think, I'm one reason to be a little bit asked to go. And for me, that it's a good chance to expose myself to the different kinds of CTO. And geographically, as well as probably some cultural reason, I think every country have a different variety of the CTOs.
No, absolutely. And actually, that brings us to, I know you travel. I know that every major meeting in the world, literally, you've been done cases at every major complex CTO meeting in the world. And I'm always very impressed, but how you're able to, very methodically approach the cases, but also, as you say, every cath lab and the patients are culturally diverse. And you've seen, many different parts of the world, different parts. How does that change your management, or you get into your standard operating mode in every cath lab and you function? How do you deal with these changes in the settings and the patients and the culture?
Yeah, actually, that is a very good question. And over the up to 2013 or 2014, I was overwhelmed by those kind of a difference. So probably I was almost overwhelmed and actually crushed over those kind of different things, because I felt as if I were kind of sacrificed by the abusing the lot of doctors, because there are so many complex cases. But once I met with the some hybrid approach, as well as some other doctors exposed to the some live demonstrations, they are actually as if entertaining to do the procedure. So that is important part, because that the Stoicism represent not only the pleasure, but also the some tranquilities are very much important. So what I found was at that time, some fatal accident occurs in the same period. So I was really, really depressed because the patient developed the donor vessel thrombosis. And at that time, I did not react as soon as possible, and eventually the patient succumbed. So that event really, really turned on my profession, because that I seriously did not sleep 3 nights in straight. So actually that I up to decide to quit the job, because that no PCI, no complication. That's my conclusion. Sure. One. But still there is local patients who ask me to do the regular PCI. But of course, the regular PCI is not related to the motor event, but actually the primary angioplasty and other things are not predictable, because the shock patients sometimes succumb. However, you've done correctly or in a timely manner, but still we cannot control everything. So then the next question comes up, whether we can control everything or not. And then if we can do everything what we can do, probably we might be in a different position. That's the beginning of the how we take a different view in this job.
No, this is great. And actually, I must say, I do, I'm personally actually have been inspired, because it does take a lot of courage, first of all, to share complications. Most people don't admit the complications, right. At least publicly. They say, and we'll know that CTO PCI is a complex thing, and everyone has complications, including myself, quite a few. But, using that mindset that, hey, there are many things I can do in a control, but there are many things I don't. And end of the day, you're right. I do believe it's an experiment, everything we do, and it may work or may not, and usually works, but there's some times where it does not, and doesn't necessarily mean we've done something wrong, but
right.
As long as we try to do at least the most we can, and also learn from the things that happened in the past. So have there been other cases like this that have influenced your approach? Other cases you remember that memorable, that have really made you change the way you practice?
Yeah, actually, that the great success and great failure cases are very much memorable. But at the same time, I try to look at those cases many times as possible. because I have always a little bit hard disk carrying around. So when I have time, I go over the films and some of the grading system I have. So some library, so to speak. So still I go over the failed cases and what should I have done and what could I have done and other things. So those remembrances are very much important. And when you have a very great case, you are so much euphoric and you've done it, but that is one aspect what we can control. But probably there is a small chance that whether you may actually make a best effort or not, some cases turns out to be a straight success with the integrate alone, for example, very long, but the very soft wire go through, for example.
Sure.
So in those borderline between what I can control and what I cannot, but still that we should be very much objective, as calm as possible. So that way I try to relearn the CTO procedure or look back the procedure many times. And during that way, I think still I can go a little bit ahead before what I was in the 1 year or 2 years ago.
So I mean, obviously, you're an expert and you do a phenomenal work, but are you still feeling you're still learning? Are you still are things getting boring for you? I mean, you've done, thousands of CTOs, you've done every country, and you're successful in most of them. Are things getting boring? Like, okay, well, another CTO, or do they still have any anxiety or stress every time you do these procedures, especially with live cases?
Yeah, actually, the more I learn and probably less stress I have. And the meaning is that if I do the procedure in front of the audience, probably that is one experience. But the good chance is that I can see the other operator's procedure as well in real time. Sure. So that is sometimes the eye-opening moment, because if I were his place, probably I would have done this way. But he showed us that the other way to complete the procedure. So that way I can learn something new every time I go to the meeting. But still, I've learned those kind of things in a real thrilled sense. So probably still I'm learning something every time I go to the meeting.
Well, I guess that's the true sense of the sensei and the master, I guess, right? I mean, realizing the limitations and that there's always room for improvement. I think that's the key to continued success. But what do you think about the live cases? Do you think they're a good means for teaching and learning, or the stress involved and maybe the speed, like the cases that go very fast, you have so much time to finish them, can be stressful? What is your thought about as a teaching tool and a learning tool? Do you think the live cases are a good idea, or should it just be taped cases, for example? Just tape them and show them later on?
Yeah, actually, the live case has the very much strong stress for the original Japanese CTO gurus, Dr. Kato, Dr. Suzuki, Dr. Tamai, because the real teaching point for the live is just share the experience together. Sure. If that is abbreviated in the taped case, probably we cannot give the audience with a real excitement as well as a real threat for the procedure. So that is the initial concept of the live demonstration. But still, I think it's a real heart of how we learn the new things, at the same time how we learn that avoid the complications. Regarding the live cases, as we all know that some cases are not good selected cases, and even though we know that if I were the operator, most of the time when I given the case, I will pick up the case because the indication as well as anatomy is already selected by the organizers. So that means probably they ask me to do the procedure. So without any question in the operator's mindset, probably I'll pick up the case. And for that purpose, some of them are very much challenging, and even I've ever known the anatomy, post-bypass, very long occlusion, for example. So in that case, I take a look at as many as possible, more than 5, 8, 10 times before the procedure. But still, some of them were impossible. But
well, I think more of them, more than not, I think you're able to make them possible in a spectacular way, which again is a testament to the skills and also the patience. Let's say a case is taking long. What is your rule for stopping? Do you have a hard rule about time, about fatigue of the patient, complications? What makes you stop if things don't go the way you anticipated and the procedure is taking longer than you thought it was going to take?
Right. Probably lack of physical energy is one thing. That's why I keep exercising, because of the lack of energy versus patient wish or the patient symptomatic relief, which is important, because that's what we are doing the procedure, right? So
Sure.
In that case, that's why I keep training every morning and night for the physical sense. But when you have a lack of imagination, what next? If you are lack of what next question, then it's a good time to stop. But most of the time that your threshold, my threshold is a little bit different, and probably depending on the operator to operator, I guess.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. And of course, everyone says it's better to stop, have a failure without a complication, or keep on pushing the envelope and potentially get into
Right.
complications
Sure.
and other problems as well. I know that you've had also many resources that because you go to every meeting pretty much, so you hear from all the best operators in the world as well.
Yeah.
But for people who don't have that luxury to go to all these meetings, how do you suggest that it's the best way to learn CTO PCI?
Right. But still that the today's environment is quite different from the 30 years ago. So
Sure.
probably we have a lot of publications as well as media outlet. And for example, your textbook, Manual of the CTO PCI, and combined with YouTube, those are the highly recommended for every learner of the CTO PCI, because everybody cannot go to your level of the skill set, but the presentation as well as the education are so much refined, so to speak. So the presentation quality as well as case selection is very much representatives of the contemporary PCI. That's what I like your text and
Well, we appreciate
presentation.
it. This is very kind of you.
It's not compliment. It's a really, yeah.
No, we appreciate it. But do you get uncomfortable? So let's say you keep doing CTO PCI for for several hours, and now you're getting to an impasse, and it's a live case.
Mm-hmm.
It's obviously a little tough, and the patient may be tired, and the operators may be tired.
Right.
In cases like this, do you just stop and have them come back and reattempt, or you just tell them maybe it's not a good idea to try again? How do you bring patients back again, or in your own lab or other places? Do you think things that don't work out is worth to try again, or maybe try other options like surgery?
In our lab, probably most of the cases are our faculty's cases. So probably I ask the doctor in charge and whether patient wish to try again or not, and we respect those kind of wishes. And sometimes we do the second or third challenges, but mostly right now that the second challenge will be managed okay.
Sure.
Yeah. In the outside the institution, probably it's a little bit hard to re-challenge situation, but several experience show that even the second attempt, probably most of them are successfully done. That's why I think it's very much important. The same skill set, but a different mindset might lead to the different outcome.
Sure. Now, you mentioned before that energy is important and that you exercise regularly to keep yourself, having the energy. And have you seen the impact? Let's say some days you didn't exercise for whatever reason. Did you see actually an impact on the way you function in the lab and the way you feel and the way you perform?
Yes, very much. For example, if you do the some complex procedures, retrograde, externalization all done, and suddenly the whole retrograde system jumped out, right? Sometimes that can happen. But before doing the exercise, usually I gave up on the situation because this is not my fault. This is the patient's fault. Probably this is just the coincidence and bad luck or something like that. But after doing the regular exercise, even if that the case, still I try to go on to recross because I have to show that the first crossing is not good luck. This is just how we do the procedure. So those kind of stamina is pretty much both physical and mental, very much important to go on the procedure. I think your some YouTube cases also ranging from the 6 or 8 hours, but at the end you've finished very nicely.
Yeah, and I mean, to be honest, they can be exhausting, as you know, and it's challenging. And sometimes, sometimes maybe it's too long. I mean, especially if you run into complications issues. But it's true that many other cases that would have failed with persistence, they work. Some papers say you should stop at 3-4 hours, and that's true for many cases. But depends on the patient, depends on the indication, and other things. But I do believe that the physical fitness does translate into mental sharpness as well. So, what do you do for exercise? How do you keep yourself in good shape?
That is difficult to explain, but just in a room exercise. So jumping and the pushing as well as abdominal. So those steps are almost 20 different kinds, but those are the steps for about 20-25 minutes, one session. So morning 20-25 and the evening 20-25. So daily exercise time is about 40-45. So that is enough, I guess.
Perfect. And you do that every day. You're able to do that every day, wherever you are. It doesn't require a special gym or equipment or anything like that.
Right. Exactly. And that is very much important to show me that I myself is not getting the COVID yet.
No, that's a good way. If you can do that exercise, I'm sure that's also good help. Apart from exercise, what else do you do that keeps you, in good shape and energized and motivated to do similar things?
Probably it's very much motivation is number one is have a good friend in the profession. And number two is have a good hobby. My hobby is listening to music. So I carry around the high definition musical player. And probably if you found some of the favorite sounds, and your brain will be a kind of the alpha wave conditions, very calm and very efficient in your work as well. So those are some little but steady entertainment is pretty much important.
Speaking of music, do you actually play music in the cath lab when you do the cases, or you prefer it silent?
Actually, I didn't. That is the only thing I regretted, but I didn't do in my life. But my wife and daughters are playing music instrument, which gave me the chance to learn something, listen to. So that is a very much good motivation for me to have some music in a new page, as well as opera, as you and Dimitri love to go. So that is a good motivation for me.
I put with some great operas that we watched together, and you're right, it's really moving and creates a lot of motivation as well. Actually, I was asking, not as yourself playing an instrument, but like in the cath lab, when you're doing a case in your cath lab at home, do you play music on the speaker, or you prefer the environment to be quiet so you can concentrate more?
In Japan, we seldom use playing music. And probably we have a very calm situation. And when you see the Japanese live, very calm and very much intensive pressure for a lot of attendee of the cath lab as well. But I love to have music in the cath lab. But the one problem is if you play your favorite music in the cath lab, actually you cannot focus because of you are so distracted to your favorite music. So I think if there is a music, probably a kind of white noise music will be better, such as I wouldn't say that the hard rock, but the jazz or that the some small volume would be okay.
Sure. Yeah. Sure. Now, do you ever get distracted during a case, or have you found a way to keep focus? Because, as you say, those cases can go long, several hours, and it can be tiring. Do you find yourself sometimes distracted, or you've now mastered the art of being focused and keeping things moving along throughout the case?
Yeah, if I were the second operator, sometimes I'm distracted because we are looking for the better procedure or looking the alternative way. But since if I were the first operator, I've never distracted to that way.
Sure.
So I just concentrate. So even the right next day for the place, more than 12 hours jet lag, but I've never felt sleep in the cath lab table. So that is a good part. So full of catecholamines. So
no, that's energy. Is that coffee that does that, or it's just natural? Just you
coffee helps a little bit, but not entire thing. Yeah.
Sure. And I think the Japanese culture also emphasizes a lot of the calmness and the focus, right? I think it's much more way. Do you think that's one of the reasons why Japan has been the pioneer in this area and continues to be creating high level, very skilled operators?
Yeah, it's hard to tell, but one of the specific culture is some tranquility in Japan. Yes, and I don't think that is synonymous with the some philosophical Stoics say that the tranquility in life, but still that the tranquility is one of the important asset of the Japanese culture as well. But in my days, the education system was not so much well open. In other words, that the teachers say that you shouldn't do that, you won't do that, kind of a negative teaching. So nobody shows us that the correct way, but they criticize us, not do that, not do that. So a lot of negative teaching. So that is one of the things we have to learn. Tranquility as well as negative feedback, so to speak.
So I thought probably in the schools or maybe the families transmit like this sense of order and calmness. So maybe it's just more of the overall culture, more so than a class you take at school and you learn how to do it. And you do go to many places, you see many people. Can you tell when you see someone do a case or when you work with someone? This is going to be a great operator if it's early in the stages, or it's great. How can you tell if a student you have is going to be good or at your home, or is it something that is hard to judge, especially early on when you work with someone that you don't know?
Yeah, that's a very good question. But personally, I think whether you are dexterous or not is not so much important compared with your motivation. So if you can see that some fire or the light in the student eyes, probably they are motivated very well. So that is one of the moment I feel very fortunate in this profession. But of course, that some students are interested in other area of the medicine. That's okay, because that is their choice. But still, that when you are strongly motivated, however they are not skillful, I think those people are very helpful and hopeful in the future, I guess.
Wonderful. I guess the motivation always helps.
Yeah.
But, do you ever tell someone that maybe, CTO PCI or complex PCI is not for you? Or do you see some students or early operators that you think, maybe it's not into their area, or you never know?
I never advise you are not appropriate for do the CTO, but when we share the experience with the Japanese colleagues, most of the time that they know how to do the procedure, but at the same time they recognize that this is not their job, because that kind of a self-learning and motivation for doing the CTO mostly in Japan is not for the kind of beneficial or the money-seeking job. So probably those are the very much natural selection processes, I guess.
Sure. Actually, that's true. I think in many countries, because you can do many more cases, if you don't do less complex cases, you can do many more cases, and financially it's more reward to actually not do CTOs.
Right.
So would you advise someone, an interventionalist who is young, have many young people coming into the area, would you advise them to take on a CTO complex? Is this something that you still recommend, or based on your experience and the difficulties and the risks involved, it's something that maybe it's just not the best option for a career?
I think that the motivation is, again, I think it's a very much important, and financial motivation would not be so sustainable in doing the complex procedure. So probably if I ask the younger people, probably if you are really happy to the final outcome, no matter what hours and how procedures you may spend, probably if you feel happy and probably fortunate in the position, probably you can become the very good operator. And in other words, if you don't feel that the happy, even with many cases with a very quick manner, still you are not so much feel rewarding. Probably those person are not appropriate for doing the CTO.
Perfect. If you had to do it all over again, let's say you're starting again, would you still have done what you're doing, the complex CTO?
If I start over, probably I would have chosen another field.
Oops.
No. The reason is that when I was Boston for the training, and that we have to repeat the diagnostic cast more than 400 cases, and then we can go on to the PCI. So up to the 200, 300 cases for the diagnostic. We are actually fed up with those routine procedures, right?
Sure.
So in those days that I repeated, I never tried this process again. I never tried. So I repeated myself so many times.
But maybe that's why things you get so methodical and systematic, right? I mean, maybe there's some value to this repetition and
right. Maybe so. Yeah.
Realizing the nuances, I guess, even on the routine cases there as well.
Right.
But I would agree with you that it is a stressful career pathway, and
sure,
it's not for everyone. But at the same time, that you can have a significant impact of many people, and everyone is talking these days that if you learn to do CTO complex PCI, then the non-CTO cases can also benefit a lot from that.
Right.
Are you also do you also believe in that your skills that you gain in CTO PCI also translate in the non-CTO PCI realm as well?
Yeah, I agree with you. So in the case of the complex complications, sometimes the perforation can occur more often in the regular PCI, because we often use a rotablator and the other lot of devices, even in Japan, the DCA available. So in those cases, experiencing the CTO PCI is very much useful most of the time, up to saving the patient lives, literally. So I think very much important, but most of the regular doctors, without doing the CTO, they owe us very much at the time of the complication, but they usually forget those kind of stepwise learning process.
Sure. And I guess it's a good thing to have a team effort, and when things go wrong,
right.
It's obviously good to support each other, because you never know how things will turn out. But you're right. I think de facto, if you do CTOs, you're going to have more complications, right? So you're going to have seen many more complications than the operators who do not. So how long do you plan to do CTO PCI? Do you think that's something that you continue to do for a long time? Do you want to take it easy? What are your plans?
Well, that's a big question, because probably as I age, still that as long as I can do some daily exercise, and I can find something new in the proctoring, probably I try to do the CTO PCI. But when I cannot find either motivation or that the physical strength, then it's time to retire. Since my wife is running the clinic in the Tokyo district, probably I don't know how she allows me to participate and to join her, but probably that is a place to do the practice, I guess, in future.
Wonderful. Yeah, I mean, I know it's a big plan, but do you see yourself outside medicine after you spend all these years and learn all the skills? Do you see yourself retiring and literally retiring and not doing anything medical-wise and just staying at home or doing some hobbies, or you think you'll always be involved in some way or another to the extent possible with medicine?
Yeah, I think I know that I'm very lazy person in nature, so probably I think it's better to learn something even with some non-cardiology medicine and some do the practice in a small position, but it's still that the important thing is to keep learning something new. That is probably you motivated for another meaning in your life, I guess.
Well, I guess that's a good characteristic and good advice, right? Keep on learning because this never learns and things will move on. And speaking of this, is there something that excites you in the field? Do you think that there's something new and exciting development, technique, device, something that you think is going to change, or we still have quite some way to go in this area?
Yeah, and recent development of the shockwave, for example, it's a very much a new excitement, and which is not available in Japan yet. But probably if you think the calcified lesion, some limitation of the stent expansion, which turns out to be a more dilatable, more durable outcome down the road will be very nice. But still we have a limitation in terms of the diffuse disease, especially the distal part of the vessel. But in those cases, we try to use a drug coating balloon, but still we don't have the definite answer. So I have a good aspiration that someday we have to replace bypass surgery with the PCI. So that day will come.
No, absolutely, and you're right. I mean, there's many new devices to come. So, so again, we're 2022. What is next? Are you planning to continue to those cases? Is there anything else? Are you going to branch to another area? Are you going to do any structural or any other field of cardiology, or what is next for you?
Actually, the structural cardiology has a very much rapid pacing, and one thing is that I cannot keep up with it, and the next thing is which most of them don't excite me. So probably I explore the CTO PCI because every patient has a different. That means every different challenges we are facing with. Sure. So that is how interested our field. Yeah.
And some people are saying that they want to learn CTO, but they also want to learn to do structural.
Right.
They want to learn the peripheral. Do you think that's a good idea to try to do all the kind of subspecialty areas in cardiology?
I think if they are still motivated to do some interventional procedures, today's environment, it's better to experience all of the field first, and then they select for the one direction or the other. Some of the CTO operators are very much talented to do the TAVA same time. So I think if they are very much comfortable with those area they are doing, I think it's very nice. Yeah.
Perfect. And then what are, on a more informal note, what is your favorite book? Is there a book that has inspired you both in medicine and non-medicine alike?
Okay, and the medicine, probably one of the best is probably your textbook, Manual of the CTO PCI.
But I know that didn't give anything Dr. Yamane to say these things.
By Manus Brilakis, that is number one, because the reason is it's updated and it's very much straightforward, line by line, and it's very much covering all of the area of the intervention for no. And probably it's combined with the YouTube video, which is also the living textbook for the entire chapter explained by the author. So that is a fantastic combination.
Absolutely. But how about non-medical books? What
non-medical, books? Non-medical is probably some book is called King of the Heart. It's a story of the Ridley High, who developed the heart and lung machine. So that story was about still the 60 or 70 years ago. So the recent development of the cardiology in those 50 years is very much exciting compared with the last 2,000 years. So that's how we appreciate the recent development. And those are the things, yeah.
Absolutely. But how about any movie? What is your favorite movie?
Favorite movie, I have two movies, and one is Amadeus, that is a story of the Mozart, and I liked Mozart very much. And the other is, you may laugh at me, but it's Top Gun, because I love the phrase, if you think you'll be killed, which translates into an interventionalist term, if you think the patient is going to die. So that's how I have to react, right?
So you have to have the fast response, similar to the fighter pilots, what you were saying before, something happens, the donor vessel perforation or something happens, have the reflexes to move quickly and be able to take care of the problem. Wonderful. Well, again, it's been a wonderful conversation, learned a lot from, how you structure and how you think. And also, I must say, you've been an inspiration for many people I know around the world, who've seen you operate. And not just the skill itself, but I think it's the attitude that plays a big role, because there are many people who are skilled operators, but sometimes the attitude might be a little expansive, and having the humility, should I say, or the respect for the patient and everyone else in the audience, I think that goes a long way. And I think that's something that you personify very well, and I think that's one of the main reasons that people look up to you as a model. So I'm very excited for starting this podcast series with you, because I think you do embody how the true Sensei CTO operator should be. So thank you again. Thanks for taking the time today.
Yeah.
You had a long day at TCT 2022, and again, we're delighted you spent this time with us.
Thank you very much for your kind invitation, as well as such a nice things about me. But as I learn and as I experience with a lot of operators, those kind of kinship or the close friendship is a backbone of our activity. Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to the Sensei podcast.